Welcome. My name is Corinne Waldo. I'm the Economic Development Director for the Boulder Chamber, and I want to thank you today for joining us in the recreation category of our weekly Safer at Home updates. We probably have a lot to talk about with recent announcements by the governor, changes in your particular industries in the last week. So please ask your questions, please provide your feedback, and please receive the information as you need it. Feedback requests that will be covered in this presentation to the state in certain areas, the links will be sent out to you following the session. We encourage you, just as we have every other week, to make those feedback points. Make sure you give that information to the state because they can't know every caveat of every industry and everything that they need to think about. And we have seen that business feedback has made an impact. So please continue to do so. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Mary Olsen with Boulder County Public Health.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 13 of dealing with a pandemic in the state of Colorado. As Corinne said, we have updates and we are going to review all of the news that we received last week about recreation. We will give you and list all the resources that we have for you and, of course, take your questions. So, like I said, early June, we had feedback that we provided on recreation. Last week, those changes were adopted. So we had looser restrictions for outdoor and personal recreation. And now this week, we have new draft guidance that's out there for residential camps and indoor and outdoor large venues and events. So feedback for that will be due tomorrow. And many of you know that the governor also announced a potential new phase called Protect Our Neighbors that has some very strict thresholds that communities will need to abide by on a case-by-case basis. So that's something that may happen toward the end of June, but again, that is something that we have to qualify for. That is not a given, it's not a free-for-all. The long-term outlook, we will be in the safer at home phase for a while. It will continue to evolve, like I was just saying. There is this new prospect for more loosening of restrictions, but again, that's something that we're really going to have to look at in terms of how our community is doing. So where we are right now is our new normal. Until we have a vaccine, until we have a cure for COVID, we are in this phase for many, many months to come. A couple of reminders. The coronavirus is just as contagious as it was in March. We do continue to urge everyone to stay at home as much as possible. And we encourage you to have your employees stay home if anyone is experiencing any COVID symptoms, any flu-like symptoms, they should not be coming to the workplace. If you have specific legal questions about compliance, we cannot provide legal advice. So we do ask that you contact an attorney. We are just here to give you the information that we can. Any legal questions we cannot answer. Face coverings. In Boulder County, when you are in public, you should have a face covering. We can't always maintain social distancing. So you should, if you are leaving your house, please have a face covering with you. We do have guidance on our website, on the Boulder County Public Health website for both your employees and your patrons. And like we said last week, there is a script on there for face coverings when your employees are encountering patrons that may not have a face covering on or with them. So here are all your go-to links. Of course, our website, Boulder County Public Health website, is that first link there. And then the state of Colorado, covid19.colorado.gov. That's where you'll find a bunch of this new information from this week. A couple more sites there. Of course, the chamber is here for you. Any professional associations that you may be linked to. I know a lot of those associations are developing their own plans for opening up. And then of course you can always check in with your municipality or your licensing agency. So we do have some workplace outbreaks of COVID-19 in our community. We have 3 confirmed active outbreaks, 3 suspected clusters of the virus. Luckily, we do have 2 resolved outbreaks. That means that there is, for about a month, there have been no new illnesses reported in those businesses. To date, we're looking at 45 workplaces that have been assessed by public health. 6 of those have been in the past week. So knowing that, it's just a great reminder to really continue to be vigilant, to be washing hands, to be sanitizing, and just making sure you're safe and your employees and patrons are safe. So more on that. What should you be doing? Conducting daily health checks, keeping those employees that are sick at home, conducting a hazard assessment, having a safety plan. Think about where the weak links in your plan are and how you can continue to make your establishment as safe as possible. Those face coverings, the governor says it all the time. We say it all the time. They are really important. There's new science showing that they are really, really helpful. So I know it's hard in the hotter weather, but it's really important. Social distancing, of course, really avoiding any congregating, and making sure, especially in this hot weather, that your building has good ventilation. Confirmed COVID cases should be sent to the county. If you do have 2 or more employees with a confirmed or suspected case within a 14-day period, that means you probably have an outbreak and you need to immediately send the CDPHE's outbreak report form to Boulder County Public Health. And then we will help you determine what steps need to be taken in order for you to move on and deal with the situation. Variances, we talked about this last week. We are continuing, Boulder County is continuing to seek a variance. We are looking for some feedback from you still. And again, this is going to be a general variance for the county that we would apply for from the state. This is not something you would have to submit. We are trying to avoid that burden for you. We just want something that is sort of an umbrella variance for the county. But again, that is still in process, and we would love your feedback if you have time to do that. And then we wanted to share this with you as well. This is from the state's website. They have this risk graphic on here. And as we move into talking about recreation, you can see that on the low risk end is outdoor recreation. And then on the high risk end is some of the indoor recreation gyms. So inside, we just really need to continue to be really diligent. Outside, we have tons of fresh air. We are able to socially distance. And when we get to that other end of the spectrum, inside a gym, we have more risk and there's higher congregation, obviously many more surfaces to keep clean. So we're just asking you to be really, really vigilant and do all of those things like mask wearing and cleaning and keeping anybody ill, any employees ill out of your business in order to keep you safe, your employees safe, and your patrons will feel safe when they come to your institution. So just wanted to share that with you as well. Okay, moving on to draft guidance that we got from the state this week. These are the links. Again, it may or may not apply to you. Residential camps, overnight camps, there's draft guidance on that. And then the indoor and outdoor large venue events. The state is taking feedback on those just until tomorrow afternoon at 5. So if that does pertain to you, I suggest you take a look and try to submit that feedback as soon as possible. And Marnie will talk about that a little bit more, and then we will review where we are with recreation. And I'm going to hand it off to Marnie.
Okay, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but it is real important if you feel that this applies to you to take a look at this draft guidance that Mary just shared the links on. What I wanted to share with you is that this draft guidance for outdoor and indoor events applies for venues that are not covered in other guidance. Why it's important is that they start to talk about size of venue, and there's new numbers that talk about percentages and number of people. The important part is that if there's guidance already on your recreational activities, that's the guidance you need to follow, not this new guidance for outdoor and indoor events. However, if you do some of those, you might want to pay attention to this as well. So take a look at those links. The other piece of guidance that came out is the next level for opening up Colorado. It's called Protect Our Neighbors, and it is a draft. It really is a new approach that puts in context a framework for both stay at home, safer at home, and now this new Protect Our Neighbors. Protect Our Neighbors is an opportunity for different sectors of Colorado, meaning different regional sections of Colorado, to potentially open based on what's happening in our local community. So it's paired very closely with public health and healthcare. The state is taking comments on this draft framework through Thursday. We don't know the time. I assume it's the end of the day, but this is a really good opportunity to start to understand some of the thinking behind the numbers, the thresholds, and how we might be able to get to a bit of a new normal and a more normal than we have been in the past. So please take a look at that as well. So where we are at with our recreation spaces, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to cover is very similar to last week because that's the guidance that we are still utilizing. So we're still under the order of safer at home in the vast great outdoors, and the personal, that includes personal recreation and outdoor recreation, which we covered last week. Your links to all of those materials are on this slide. We covered this last week. Your indoor gyms, rec centers, and pools are open, 25% capacity or 50 people, whichever is fewer per room. A lot of questions about that last week. Hopefully we answered them. If you have more, let us know. There's different thresholds for different activities, and that's because of how those activities and the people in those activities interact. So one of those is recreational league sports and teams. Indoors, they can only have 10 or fewer players working together. For everything, social distancing and face coverings are part of all of this. Don't share equipment, clean and disinfect all equipment between uses if there's going to be any sharing. You can open your restrooms and showers, and the guidance says that, close the lockers if you can. If you need to have lockers open, be sure to close off certain series of lockers. The idea around that is you want to have space for social distancing. You don't want to promote congregating. So work in that way. Outdoor activities. Across the board, unless there's different guidance for a specific activity, activities are 10 or fewer people, and they are all authorized following social distance. Some of the things that have exceptions would be playgrounds and outdoor sports facilities can have no more than 25 people. And you have to be aware that high touch surfaces should be cleaned and disinfected frequently. Some of the playgrounds aren't able to do that, so that's something to be aware of, especially if you're going to be hosting something in these areas. You might want to bring your sanitation with you. Outdoor swimming pools have a 50% capacity outdoors, no more than 50 people. and the swimming pool operators need to be very vigilant about cleaning every hour, disinfecting and cleaning touch surfaces, frequently touched surfaces, shared objects, and bathrooms. One of the things I don't think I covered in a slide last week, but I think came up, is this other group, which is outdoor organized youth and adult recreational sport leagues. They're another exception. Groups can be up to 25 players, excluding coaches, referees, and umpires. The important thing here is that they have to be maintaining contact information and team rosters. So these are your teams that you're playing with through the whole season. So you should be able to understand what's happening there. There's also some symptom checks and such that have to happen. They can hold games, and there's some guidance that try to space those out so that if an event does occur or a breakout does occur, you can really manage that better. And you'll need to work with public health on that if that happens, to do the contact tracing. The other thing about the rec sports is that they do allow spectators for youth, mostly parents and families, strongly discouraging for the adult leagues. So one of the things that came up, I think at last week's meeting, and we've had some conversation at the county, is this question. With recreation centers and gyms that can have up to 50 people for indoor training, why can't this many people participate in outdoor classes? And so we've talked about it. We agree, Boulder County Public Health agrees, and we're allowing up to 50 people to participate in outdoor classes and training. That should probably be underlined, because that is the activity that is allowing. These are types of things where you can space people out and have your social distancing. And we think that if you can do it indoors, you probably can do it outdoors with that space. I'm sorry, 1 second. Is it really bad?
We gotta get him to.
Okay. I've got a child with a foot cut, I believe, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. I think that these things, Mary, are the few that are left you can probably cover.
I got it.
So I apologize to duck out, but my phone has been going off the hook, and now I know why.
No worries. Good luck.
Take care, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll just finish up this slide. Just a note that the 50 people does not include employees and trainers. So 50 people in the class is fine. Obviously, social distancing, use of a face covering, not only when not exercising, but as much as feasible. The latest updates in the outdoor recreation field. A lot of these don't necessarily apply to Boulder County because they're for the big outfitters of what we see in the mountain communities. But non-guided and most guided services can happen in groups of up to 10 following local policies. This would include fishing, hiking, kayaking, tours, can't read what that tour word is, and climbing. So probably for Boulder County, this would be more like your hiking group, your climbing group. Those can occur in groups of 10. For the outfitters, river rafting, Jeep tours, that needs to be limited to up to 2 households only or less. And again, local policies must be followed. Any non-guided equipment rentals must follow the retail guidelines. Those are on our website. Any large-scale facilities will need local approval. So again, in Boulder County, that's mostly just going to be Eldora. A few reminders for everyone. It's great to have a deputy at the workplace that is coordinating all COVID issues. If you have more than 50 employees, that person's gonna have more responsibilities, and your organization will have more responsibilities in keeping a safety plan active for COVID. Continue to maintain that 6 feet, have those visual cues, face coverings at all times when 6 feet cannot be maintained, And then of course, signage. There's tons of signage that you can use from our website for hygiene purposes. Make sure your facilities are well ventilated, as we said earlier, and obviously cleaning and disinfecting as much as possible, as frequently as possible. And again, having those symptom checks and monitoring for your employees. Questions and suggestions. We have a link here just to the COVID-19 state website, just because there is so much new information that came out today. So I really encourage you to look at that new information. It's a lot, but hopefully it's going to provide more opportunities for your businesses if we can continue to be safe and avoid a lot of virus transmission in our communities. And then of course we have a link to the issues and concerns form on the state's website. That's really where you can fill something out and let the state know what your specific issues are. And of course you can contact us. There's a link to our website, Boulder County Public Health. Our call center remains open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And that phone number is there for you. Oh, and that's it.
All right, well, you actually answered some of the questions with the presentation and we were able to resolve those. So a reminder, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. And I can also get them if they're in the chat if the Q&A is not accessible to you. I think this question may be answered by you, or it might have to be answered under a different set of regulations. But how many people can use a parks pavilion at one time during a rental?
So that will be municipality by municipality. I mean, you're just going to have to apply for the permit. If you have a group, most of those pavilions have rental policies. If they don't, it's a first come, first served basis. And as long as your group is fewer than 10, you're good to go.
And I would also add that you would, if your group is unrelated people, you need to really think about the 6-foot distancing and the wearing the mask. That's really important. And yeah, Mary knows better than most, since she works with parks, that's most pavilions, if they're rentable, have a number limit on the people who can be there.
Should they be following the outdoor events guidance as far as numbers on that?
Well,
I think,
sorry.
Yeah,
Mary.
I think if it's a pavilion, your first step is going to have to be with whichever agency controls that pavilion, because some of them might not be opening pavilions yet. So the first step is to check in with the municipality or the organization that.
The municipality is actually the one asking this question. So I think they're looking at the new state guidance on the outdoor events and some of those pieces.
Yeah, I would clarify.
What are the limits?
Yeah, we're giving you guidance on the existing guidance. Until we see finalized guidance, I think it's hard for us to parse draft right at this point.
And so one of the things that we're going to send out today is the feedback for indoor and outdoor events. That guidance, that feedback's due tomorrow, with the idea that it would go final hopefully this week. If not, when we get that information. And it does, as indicated earlier when she brought up the numbers, it does indicate indoor and outdoor number of people, no more based on the size of the facility and square footage. So make sure you give your feedback on that, but they don't have a final number quite yet because it is still draft guidance. Thank you for working with me on that question. All right, so this is a little bit longer, but someone said they had a client come to their scheduled class, did not have a mask and said they couldn't wear one due to asthma. If she is socially distant, at least 6 feet from others during the workout, can she, and she can't wear a mask, can she still work out and be there when other people are around?
Do you want to take that one, Mary?
I will take it, and the answer is yes. And if you follow the face covering script, that will help you a little bit. I mean, if you have a medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask, you are accepted from these guidelines. So the caveat would be, if you as the owner are not comfortable, you do not have to allow that patron to participate. So I think that's a little bit of a judgment call for you, making sure that your other patrons and you feel safe.
And I would add, I mean, in this specific situation, just as I was thinking, gaming out how that would work, not only would that patron have to maintain 6 feet of distance during practice, but as that patron entered the room, he or she would have to maintain 6 feet of distance from everyone getting to the spot that they would do that. So it takes a lot of planning for that to work, I think.
And I think just a key point to keep in mind is that 6 feet of difference is what we're recommending when people are talking in a normal, regular voice or not breathing heavily.
Right.
So depending on how intense your workout is, you're going to want to space even the general population participating, maybe even further than 6 feet. And especially those who have medical conditions, you would want to consider even further, because that's for just normal, standard, regular talking communication, kind of preventing droplets being shared. So heavier breathing, consider further spaces for no matter what recreation is going on, for all sports, all types, is, you know, you need to factor that in to kind of your space plan and your, you know, your how heavy your working out plan.
And a lesson learned from some other industries, and Cami can kind of talk to this a little bit on some of the other industries, is that some of the retailers and personal services are providing different hours for those people that are unable to wear a mask or may feel at risk, or, you know, some of those pieces, and maybe a creative approach for this industry as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the personal trainers are doing more sessions, spacing them out farther apart, holding smaller groups so they can space them out, but doing more groups than they normally, I mean, people, yeah, are finding ways to make it work so they can provide their service to everyone without limiting other people. But if they're going to be a part of a larger group network, you definitely would want to consider more than 6 feet for even possibly everybody, depending on how heavy the breathing is, because that's the point of social distancing.
Okay, so this is a little bit about face masks and yoga. One of the participants said that one of the instructors said they don't feel safe wearing a face mask, holding poses, talking, and struggling to breathe and feel dizzy. Would that follow under that label of unsafe? Under the rules it says request staff members and patrons wear face coverings when they can do so safely.
I mean, I think so, as long as, again, you take into account, sorry, Mary, I jumped in.
Oh, you're good.
As long as you take into account that 6 feet of distance plus, as Cami mentioned, when you're exerting yourself more, you need to increase that. You need to think about increasing that distance to protect both the practitioner and all of the people in the class. And at a certain point, it's up to the instructor and the class whether it's worth making all those exceptions to try and make the class work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, another way to look at it is adjust the workout plan to be less strenuous versus
right.
Trying to find a way to remove the mask, versus consider changing the workout first before it's about removing the masks to keep everybody safe. Especially since the direction that the instructor is facing the clients is probably at them versus in the same direction. So if it's too strenuous for the instructor to do, consider maybe if it's too strenuous for possibly the attendees to do. So adjust the workout plan as well. I mean, not consider greater distance, but consider the workout plan and how strenuous you can make it safely.
Okay, and we've already talked about in yoga, there's no adjustments, and you should probably avoid walking around because then you're getting within people's 6 feet with any class. This brings up a point, which is that, yes, with this social distancing, with the 50%, with the instructor, with the fact that, people are exerting themselves, some places can only have 9 people, even though the rule says 50, because of all of these things taken into account. All right, so the question, I think there's some confusion about the governor's Protect Our Neighbors step that he announced yesterday. There is a question as to, there's the understanding that the new phase will be implemented roughly around July 4th. Will you please explain what Protect Our Neighbors means and how Boulder County would have to qualify for the Protect Our Neighbors stage, and what that would take as a community with our current situation?
You want me to do that? Okay, so yeah, that's, you sort of set it up perfectly. Protect Our Neighbors is in draft form now. They're taking comments, taking questions. It's likely to be July at the earliest before that is implemented. And as Corinne hinted, there are requirements that we have to meet as a community in terms of new cases, the rate of new cases and the rate of hospitalizations that we would have to meet. And I wanted to bring this up because it also affects the variance question. As Mary mentioned, we've seen an increase in cases recently. There have been a couple outbreaks. There were 30 new cases that we found out about just today. And so we're seeing trends in the wrong direction, and the state won't accept a variance request and won't review a variance request if we don't meet their standards, which is steady or decreasing rates of both hospitalization and new cases, and we're seeing the wrong direction. And that's also going to impact our ability to apply for and receive the go-ahead to move to a new phase that would be more open. And so I think in each session we've talked about all of the things that you're doing in your industry to protect people, but we just have to remember 6 feet social distancing, wearing your mask all the time, as much as you can when you're outdoors. These are the ways that we're going to get our case numbers back down, rates back down to the point where we might be able to apply for these programs. Whether that's a variance or if the Protect Our Neighbors meets all of our goals for the variance, then that would be preferable than writing an entire variance ourselves. So we want to be prepared to move to these new phases when they're available. So there's my scolding everyone.
No, and you and we've brought this up. We've had this conversation on every call today, and this idea that when I send out the link to give your feedback about the Protect Our Neighbors phase, you'll also see it does very clearly specify in there that a community or county has to qualify using these steps. And that's kind of one of the feedbacks, or what other things might we want to ask. But it also asks questions like, if we reach certain thresholds, moving back to safer at home or back to stay at home may be possible.
Yeah.
So we just need to remember, as a community, as the business community, as citizens of this county, that these numbers matter, and they're going to affect our ability to move to other stages later on, and that we need to be diligent. It matters. Our customers, their safety, our employees' safety. When people are out and about, reminding them that it matters. You're out doing something socially, and then you're not wearing a mask, and you come into the workplace and you have symptoms and you didn't stay at home, you're going to now have the outbreak at that business. So we talk to businesses on a regular basis about these things matter. This health matters for our economy and our health. And we see an indication right here that we need to keep being diligent moving forward. Do I have any other questions out there? Are there any other pieces you guys would like to cover? We have a lot less questions this week than last week, which I know you guys, we're scrambling to kind of get some of those questions last week, but I think we've gotten past the hefty lift on this one industry for right now. All right, well, I don't see any additional questions. But if you do have them in the meantime, please do not hesitate to contact covidbiz@bouldercounty.org. If you are out and about and need to report a violation, they also have a violations line. They are getting information from customers and employees and a lot of different avenues. Also, you can reach out to me if you can't find any other email address and can't remember that one and you just want to respond to my email. I forward them on quite a bit. We hope to see you next week. Things will again shift and change, and there will be more announcements as the week goes on. So it's good to continue to get your information, ask your questions, and let's reopen this economy in a safe fashion. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mary,
Thank
Corinne,
you.
Cammie.